Hello there and welcome to another edition of the All-CAW Wrestling podcast video type thing. My name is the Big Daddy D and I'm sat in the podcasting table by myself today. So you'll have to listen to the sweet succulent tones of my voice without it being interrupted by Little Daddy E or indeed Little Natty Noo. Oh well. So, we're just coming off Payback. Really enjoyed that pay-per-view on the WWE Network. Of particular note was when the Shield briefly reunited to put Randy Orton through a table. I also thought the Cesaro and Tyson Kidd versus the New Day match was the highlight of the evening, which just goes to show you put a couple of talented guys in the same ring together and you'll get fantastic results. I have to give kudos to WWE because over the last few days, well, over the last sort of week or so, they've had me sort of marking out like a proper old school fan. Kevin Owens showing up on Raw and going sort of nose to nose with John Cena. You know, Owens versus Cena will now take place at Elimination Chamber. I was like, oh my god, is this actually happening? And I've yet to see Unstoppable. It was actually on the evening before that I'm recording this, but Samoa fucking Joe of all people shows up at NXT and goes nose to nose with Kevin Owens. So that is going to be absolutely awesome. And I'm also looking forward to the Stone Cold podcast with Paul Heyman. So there's a lot of good stuff coming up on the WWE Network at the moment. I've also been watching some of the WWE's sort of original programming as well, including Too Hot for TV with Jerry Springer and Culture Shock with Corey Graves. Now, there's a few things I want to say about those programmes, but me and Little Daddy is going to save that for a separate podcast, which will sort of come later on there. But for today, we want to take another look back, or should I say I want to take another look back, at another retrospective look at the WWF from yesteryear, courtesy again of the WWE Network. We're still in 1988, it's the second annual Survivor Series, and tonight Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man are going to bring down the Twin Towers. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said that, that looked a lot better in the script than saying it out loud. But never mind, for it's time for the second annual Survivor Series, which took place on November 24th, 1988, Thanksgiving night in the United States, and was held at the Richfield Coliseum in Richfield Township, Ohio. The show begins with some cheesy 80s graphics, and Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse the Body Ventura open up the show. Ventura is dressed up to look like a pilgrim, because he's Jesse fucking Ventura, and he'll wear whatever the bloody hell he wants. I have to say, I'm very glad to see Ventura back at the commentator's table. You know, not sort of taking anything away from superstar Billy Graham, but the dynamic between Ventura and Monsoon is fantastic. Our first match is WWF Intercontinental Champion, The Ultimate Warrior, along with Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Sam Houston, the Blue Blazer, and Jumpin' Jim Brunzell versus the Honky Tonk Man, Dangerous Danny Davis, Greg the Hammer Valentine, the Outlaw Ron Bass, and Bad News Brown. Don Muraco was originally going to be part of Warrior and Beefcake's team, but he left the WWF and was replaced with former Killer Bee, Jumpin' Jim Brunzell. Ventura comments that he's surprised that Bad News would even consider teaming up with anyone. Gorilla mentions that Greg Valentine takes about 20 minutes just to warm up, which makes him sound like the worst kettle ever. Former tag team champions in the Dream Team, Valentine and Beefcake, open the match, but then Valentine tags in Denny Davis, who proceeds to get eliminated in record time thanks to Beefcake's sleeper hold. Ventura calls the Blue Blazer a phenomenon. And you know what? He's absolutely right. We'll see him again in the WWF without the mask as Owen Hart a few years later. Bad News evens things up for his team after eliminating Jumpin' Jim with the Ghetto Blaster. Where's B. Brian Blair when you need him? Bad News works on Houston, but Valentine nails Bad News by mistake. Bad News then walks out on his team and deliberately gets himself counted out. Ventura and Monsoon mention that Bad News isn't a team player. This was a great way to build up a heel and eliminate him without getting pinned. This is something that Bad News would make a habit of doing at Survivor Series, as he'll do exactly the same thing at the following year's event as well. Ron Bass eliminates Sam Houston via a power slam, but then the Warrior comes in and clings house on the heels, before double teaming with Blazer, hitting a rocket launcher for a 2 count, which would be Owen and Neidhart's finisher, when they would team up as the New Foundation a few years later. Blazer continues to show off his high-flying moves, but Honky spoils the fun when he pushes Blazer off the top rope and Blazer lands on both of his knees, leading to Valentine quickly slapping on the figure 4 to eliminate Blazer and make it a 3-on-2 advantage to the heels. Beefcake went in to attack Valentine, but the rest of the heel team do a number on him. Honky's about to hit Beefcake with the shake, rattle and roll, but Beefcake counters and Bass is tagged in to take out Beefcake. Bass does some damage and Warrior can only angrily shake the ropes in response. Honky tags back in and Beefcake starts to barber up, or whatever his version of hulking up is called. Beefcake slaps on the sleeper to Honky. Both men tumble out of the ring, but Beefcake keeps the sleeper slapped on so that both men end up getting counted out. Well done, Beefcake. Bass and Valentine double team the Warrior, but the Warrior manages to flatten them both and pins Bass, followed by Valentine about 20 seconds later, to become the sole survivor of this match at the 8-minute 11-second mark. This was a great choice for an opener, as the Warrior got the crowd really all fired up. Bizarrely enough, some home versions of this event had the next match on first, and this match on second, for some reason. Yeah, the VHS version in particular is somewhat odd. So we come to the next match, which is the 5-team versus 5-team Survivor Series match. Now, I really enjoyed the one that I had at the previous year, and this one is also excellent. You've got WWF Tag Team Champions Demolition, along with the Brainbusters, the fabulous Rougeau Brothers, the Bolsheviks, and the Conquistadors, which are definitely not Edge and Christian here. They're going up against the Powers of Pain, the Rockers, the British Bulldogs, the Hart Foundation, and the Young Stallions. This is the first time that we're seeing the Rockers on a pay-per-view. They were meant to be in the WWF about a year previous to this as the Midnight Rockers, but they were fired about 2 weeks into their contract after an incident in a bar and for trashing their hotel room. Clearly, they were living their gimmick even at this early age. This is also the first time that we're seeing Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard on a WWF pay-per-view as the Brainbusters. Anderson and Blanchard jumped ship from the NWA to the WWF shortly after the NWA's first uninterrupted pay-per-view, the Great American Bash 1988, which we've covered here on a previous episode. According to the DVD, Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen, Blanchard had suggested that he and Anderson should have a rematch with the Road Warriors from their previous encounter at Starrcade 87, which had ended in controversial fashion when the Horsemen retained the titles on a reverse decision. But instead of getting their rematch against the Roadies, the Horsemen were booked against Sting and Nikita Koloff instead, whom they wrestled to a bullshit 20-minute time limit draw. When the pay-per-view payouts were given out, it was discovered that the Horsemen's manager, J.J. Dillon, had received 3 times the payment of either Anderson or Blanchard, who saw this as the final straw and gave their notices into Jim Crockett Promotions shortly afterwards. This ended the original Four Horsemen, and according to Blanchard, it was the end of an era. Vince McMahon was also interested in getting Ric Flair over to the WWF as well, but Flair still remained loyal to Jim Crockett at this point. But as we're seeing new teams enter the WWF, we're also seeing older teams leaving. The Young Stallions would split up a few months after this pay-per-view, as Jim Powers and Paul Roma didn't actually like each other backstage. Powers went on to become a glorified jobber, although he would end his WWF career on a winning streak. Roma would later team up with Hercules to form Power and Glory, and eventually ended up in WCW, where he would become one of the Four Horsemen. Yes, really. This would also be the last appearance for the British Bulldogs in the WWF as a tag team. The Dynamite Kid would be gone for good, whilst Davey Boy Smith would return in 1991 as a singles competitor known as the British Bulldog. The Rougeau brothers were the first to be eliminated when Bret Hart small-packaged Raymond Rougeau. Not only was this a great way to get the Excellence of Execution nickname over, it also got the Rougeaus out of the building quickly, as they'd had a backstage issue with the Bulldogs. Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, had pulled a prank on the Rougeaus backstage where he'd basically ripped up their clothes, but he'd framed the Bulldogs for it, knowing that there was already tension brewing between the two teams. Dynamite and Jack Rougeau each had backstage attacks on the other prior to the pay-per-view, which had come to a head after Jack Rougeau had knocked out several of Dynamite's teeth out with a sucker punch in-house with a roll of quarters. Considering that Dynamite now had a dodgy-looking moustache and a curly permed mullet to go with his missing teeth, it wasn't exactly a good look for him. The Bulldogs planned on attacking the Rougeaus right after this match, but the WWF found out about it and organised the Rougeaus' immediate elimination and kept the Bulldogs out there almost until the end. So the Rougeaus were gone by the time Davey Boy and Dynamite got to the locker room. Bret Hart confirms the whole incident in his autobiography, which is well worth a read and comes highly recommended from us here. Back in the ring, Ventura said that the Brain Busters could keep up with the Hart Foundation hold for hold. After a power slam that Anvil gave to Tully, I noticed there was a nasty rash under Anvil's arm. Ew, I wouldn't want to wrestle him if I'd seen that before the match. You would have thought that he'd bandaged it up or something. Jim Powers got eliminated by Boris Zukov with a reverse cross body. Boris got eliminated after Jannetty pinned him with a sunset flip. I have a feeling that at least one of these rockers will become a main eventer one day. Out of the two Survivor Series matches so far on the card, I have to say that this match is better than the Warrior vs Honky match. It might be due to this match is getting more time than the other match, or it could be that there's better wrestlers in this match, or it could be that these men's styles are more to what I'm interested in. Either way, this has been the best match of the night so far. I guess that's what happens when you have 20 men in a ring who all want to try and show off their in-ring skills on one of the biggest shows of the year when there's a lot of eyes on them. In fact, a lot of footage from this one match was used on the promo video for Coliseum Home Video when the WWF pay-per-views were released on good old VHS. There was a swerve when Bret Hart hit Tully with a German suplex and Tully's shoulders were up, but Bret's shoulders were down. In essence, Bret had pinned himself. Bloody referee. I'd keep an eye on that Earl Hebner if I were you, Bret. The Brain Busters and the Rockers got double disqualified. These two teams would end up facing each other multiple times on the house circuit. The Bulldogs were eliminated when Dynamite Kid got blasted by a nasty looking clothesline from Smash that JBL would have been proud of. Fuji was on the apron and the ref was counting at him to get down. When Smash went to the ropes, Fuji opened them, making his man fall out of the ring and get counted out. Axe got in his face, confronted him on why he made his team get eliminated. I'm surprised that the Demos didn't just beat the shit out of Fuji straight away, to be honest with you. Fuji turns on his team and nails Axe with his cane. Axe body slams Fuji on the floor outside the ring. The Powers of Pain went out and helped Fuji up and helped him over to their corner. What's this? Is this supposed to be a double turn? Fuji trips up a conquistador, allowing Barbarian to finish him off with a headbutt and a pinfall victory for the Powers of Pain at the 42-minute, 24-second mark. Yes, this was a long match. Demolition came back and they pounded on the Powers of Pain. Fuji yelled at the Powers to get out and left the ringside area with him. Yes, this was indeed a double turn. Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer would later say that this is one of the crappiest double turns that he can recall. That's saying something in my opinion. It's not exactly up there with Bret versus Austin. I'm not sure what Fuji has gained here, as he's turned his back on the two guys with the belts to side with two guys who don't have the belts. I mean, maybe it would have been better if Fuji had have turned on Demolition during a title match and cost them the belts and Powers of Pain became tag team champs. That way, Demolition could then get their revenge on the Powers and Fuji by beating them for the belts again at WrestleMania. Just an idea. But yeah, this was a bit of a confusing mess, and the audience didn't really know what had happened either. Sean Mooney interviewed Bad News Brown backstage. Bad News said that everyone wants to be the first to defeat him, and he isn't willing to give anyone that satisfaction. He also called the card Survival Series. He also said that he should be challenging Randy Savage for the WWF title, and that he's defeated everyone that came in front of him. Vince McMahon had actually promised Bad News that he would be the first ever black champion in WWF history when he first joined the company. But after Vince went back on that promise, it would lead to Bad News calling time on his WWF career. Mean Gene Okerlund was backstage with Mr. Fuji and the Powers of Pain. Fuji said he made Demolition, and once they won the titles, they got swollen heads and stopped listening to him, so he brought in the Powers of Pain to teach them a lesson. The rest of what Fuji said I literally couldn't understand, although there was lots of shouting from Barbarian and Warlord, so that's all good. The announcers discussed the next 2 Survivor Series matches, which I assume all this chatter and all this interview stuff, it must be obviously an excuse for the audience to go and take a piss break and to visit the merchandise stands. Mean Gene interviews Andre's team. Andre said that he would lead his team to victory again at Survivor Series. Sean Mooney is backstage with the Mega Powers team. Coco Beware's pet parrot is going crazy. I assume he's on the same bugger sugar as what most of the roster was. Well, it was the 80s. Next match is Jake the Snake Roberts, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Ken Patera, Tito Santana and Scott Casey versus Andre the Giant, Dino Bravo, Harley Race, Mr. Perfect and Ravishing Rick Rude. Junkyard Dog was originally supposed to be part of Roberts' team, but he left the WWF. We'll see him turning up later on in the NWA. B. Brian Blair replaced the Junkyard Dog to be part of the team, but then he also left the WWF. So he was replaced by Scott Casey, an upper jobber, like the Brooklyn Brawler, or Zack Ryder. For 2 years in a row, Rick Rude is on the same team as Andre the Giant, with Ken Patera on the opposing team. This is also the first pay-per-view appearance of Mr. Perfect, who looks really odd in plain black tights, black knee pads and white boots. The trademark singlet didn't come in until a bit later. Patera got eliminated by the Rude Awakening. Gorilla and Jesse put over the finisher, commenting that no one gets up from that, making it seem real to the fans watching at home that if they get hit with that move by the Ravishing One, they ain't going to be getting up again straight away. Ventura also wonders on who Cheryl Roberts is cheering for tonight. So I guess that means that the Jake Roberts versus Rick Rude feud is still going. When Santana hit Perfect with a small package, I'm surprised that Ventura didn't make another racist joke against Santana, because he's made a habit of doing that. Race hit Santana with a pile driver and tried to pin him, but didn't hook the leg, which let Santana kick out. Race then got a flying forearm for his troubles and eliminated. Andre came in right away to take out Santana, sitting on Santana's chest to get the victory. With a 4-on-3 advantage, it's really looking good for the heels at this point. Duggan made a mad dash in to attack Andre, and Andre got tied up in the ropes, which at this point at the end of his professional wrestling run is pretty much his big spot now. Both Duggan and Roberts take advantage of Andre being tied up and start punching and choking the shit out of him. Andre looks like he's in real bad shape when he's out on the apron. If it wasn't for the ropes, I'm not sure if he'd be able to stand up on his own 2 feet, to be honest. I feel bad for the guy, and I give him props for wrestling when he isn't doing well. Still, there's no doubt that once he's in the ring, he is still to be feared, as he's punching and chopping and choking away. He's definitely someone to be feared still in that ring. Duggan got himself eliminated when he grabbed his 2x4 and nailed Bravo with it. This was a stupid thing to do, as now Roberts is left all by himself against 4 heels. Duggan has once again made himself look like a complete fucking idiot. Rude got DDT'd and eliminated by Roberts. When the count was being made, Andre came in to attack Roberts right away. Andre got himself eliminated by choking the shit out of Roberts to the 5 count, drawing the DQ at the 9-minute 2-second mark. But whilst Jake is laid out, Perfect runs in and steals the pinfall at the 9-minute 24-second mark, leaving Perfect and Bravo as the survivors. Ventura gets over how great Andre was, sacrificing himself for the good of the team. Although Jake gets the last laugh when he pulls out his snake and chases away the baddies with it. Yeah. Well thought out and well booked match, got the point across. The action was pretty good considering there were some jobbers, some replacements and some older broken down guys in here. Perfect manages to continue his undefeated streak. The ending was good, with the Andre and Bravo team actually talking strategy in how to corner Jake. Roberts, of course, played his part perfectly by telling a great desperation story in the ring once Duggan got eliminated. This is something that Roberts would do again at the 4th annual Survivor Series. And Duggan, he was a clueless Burke, as always. Mean Gene's backstage with the Big Boss Man's team, and the Boss Man was huge back then. To be honest, I think he looked a lot better in his career when he was smaller and he'd slimmed down a bit, but to be honest, he was always agile for such a big man. So your main event, yes, there's only four matches on this thing, is Big Boss Man, Akeem, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, King Haku, and the Red Rooster versus WWF Champion Macho Man Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan, Koko B. Ware, Hercules, and Hillbilly Jim. Randy Savage was still the undisputed WWF Champion at this point, and things were still harmonious between him and Hulk Hogan. After defeating the Megabucks at SummerSlam, they had moved on to a feud with the Twin Towers, the team of Big Boss Man and Akeem, who would be instrumental in Hogan and Savage's eventual breakup. DiBiase, having been the main heel for most of 1988, having title matches against Hogan and then title matches against Savage, was now dropped off the radar a little bit, as he was involved in a feud by proxy with Hercules, as Bobby Heenan had tried to sell him to DiBiase as a slave. Good job he wasn't black then, because that would have made this angle really awkward. Like that time when Harlem Heat were slaves in chains and Colonel Robert Parker was their manager/owner. Seriously, what is wrong with fucking wrestling? It's odd to see Ted DiBiase walking out to Slick's theme song. It's also odd that the WWE Network haven't dubbed over Jive Soul Bro this time. I mean, you did this for WrestleMania 4, but not for this show. And yes, Jive Soul Bro was originally on WrestleMania 4, as I actually had the VHS version of it back in the day. You know, so it's odd that you'd dub it for this event, but not for this one. Okay. Oh, by the way, as mentioned in one of our previous episodes, the one-man gang has now metamorphed, transformed if you like, into Akeem, the African Dream. Earlier on in the year, Slick had announced that the gang, whilst obviously being Caucasian, was actually of African descent, and that he was going to re-embrace his roots. The gang would be renamed as Akeem the African Dream after some sort of bizarre ritual ceremony which looked like it had taken place in a back alley somewhere. Akeem would now deliver his promos in an extremely stereotypical black accent. He also has strangely effeminate hands now for some reason. That went down well, as you could probably imagine. To no surprise, the Mega Powers team had to come out to two themes. The four men come out to Macho's theme, and Hogan comes out to his own theme. What a selfish twat. The crowds aren't exactly keen on Hogan either. When Hogan came in to face the Red Rooster, there really wasn't any reaction at all. But when Hogan hit him with the big boot and then tagged in Macho, Savage got a huge reaction, especially after he hit the big elbow to eliminate the Rooster. What I also find amusing is that WWE used to have to block out the letters WWF until they'd come to an agreement with the World Wildlife Fund. That basically means that although the version on the WWE Network and the original VHS videotape are okay, the DVD version of this event has got Koko B. Ware's arse all blurred out because he's got WWF written on the backside of his ring gear, which is kind of awkward for him because it makes it look like he shat his pants. Poor Hillbilly Jim gets splashed by Akeem and eliminated. I guess Jimbo never had any pigs or cows that were that big on the farm. Koko tried to splash Akeem into the corner and got battered face first into the turnbuckle. Big Bossman then tags in and hits the Bossman slam onto Koko and pins him for the elimination. Hogan came in to go toe-to-toe with the Bossman and the crowd goes wild for their encounter. Hogan would go on to bite Bossman, hit him with a big boot, body slam him and then try to shoulder block him twice, only to get a spine buster for his trouble. Oh Hogan, you should have used your smarts. Akeem came in to soften Hogan up once more. Hogan would then get beaten up by the four opposing members, but then came back with a small Hulk up. I say a small Hulk up because it just looked like he decided not to sell any more of DiBiase's fist drops. Brother! Hercules goes in against the $1 Million Man. However, it won't be for too long, as Herc would soon find himself getting pinned, leaving the Mega Powers to go 4-2. With that, Savage ran in and schoolboyed DiBiase, causing him to be eliminated. Hogan got nailed by the Bossman slam, but Bossman doesn't go for the pinfall. Even Gorilla and Jess were questioning that choice. Bossman came off the top rope, but Hogan rolled out of the way. Hogan got handcuffed onto the bottom rope on the outside, leaving Savage by himself. With this, Bossman got counted out, which gave him ample opportunity to twat Hogan with his nightstick. Oh, and Akeem gets himself disqualified as well. Not exactly smart, this heel team, are they? Macho went to try and tag Hogan, but he wasn't there. Now, if Haku was smart, he'd defeat Savage and then easily win because Hogan would be getting counted out. Slick and Bobby Heenan get nailed, and Elizabeth manages to get the keys to the handcuffs and set Hogan free. Hogan manages to tag back into the match when Haku thrust kicks Savage into the Mega Powers corner by accident. Hogan comes in, he hits the big boot, body slam, leg drop, and gets the victory at the 29-minute 9-second mark. Yep, it was that easy. Poor Macho got beat up when the story was being told that Hogan was getting out of the handcuffs by his wife. To make matters worse, Hogan just poses and celebrates in the ring without checking on his partner, and even goes so far as to hug Elizabeth right in front of Savage. Savage gives him a right look as if to say, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Or even, "You what, mate?" But Hogan continues posing and celebrating, completely oblivious to the fact that Savage is all beaten up and pissed off. What a tremendous fucking cunt Hulk Hogan is. I would have watched this back in the day and decided, you know what, Hogan's not the good guy that I'm going to cheer for. I'm going to cheer for Savage, because Hogan's selfish and he hogs the spotlight, and he makes unwelcome advances on Elizabeth. And yet Savage is the one that becomes the bad guy out of all this? Yeah, whatever. Great main event. Anyone who needed to be protected here either got DQ'd, counted out, or won the match. The cracks in the Mega Powers Foundation are beginning here, especially when Ventura interviews Savage afterwards. Nothing like doing a bit of shit stirring there, eh, Jesse? Unfortunately, this interview is missing from the network version, but at least all the matches are intact. The VHS and DVD versions of this event are an odd bag, as most of the matches have got trimmed down quite badly, but then that additional running time is filled up with a number of exclusive interviews, including the aforementioned Ventura interview with Savage, and one that Mean Gene had with Andre that seemed to suggest that the giant is afraid of snakes. It would be nice to get a full version with the matches in full, plus all the interviews as well. Oh well. The Tag Team Survivor Series match was definitely the highlight of the night, even if the ending and the double turn was confusing. Having said that, the quality of the wrestlers involved can't be doubted. I mean, come on, you're getting Bret Hart in there, British Bulldog, you're getting Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty. I mean, enough said. As for the main event, it existed really to plant the seed for the Mega Power splitting up, due to Hulk Hogan's cuntish behaviour. It's also great to see the likes of Shawn Michaels, Mr. Perfect and Owen Hart making their pay-per-view debut appearance here as well. So, next up on our sort of podcast show, myself and Little Daddy E are going to be taking a look at Too Hot for TV with Jerry Springer and Culture Shock with Corey Graves, and we're going to take a look over it and sort of see, you know, bring up some suggestions on how these shows could be and should be a lot better. Next time we're doing a retrospective look. We'll be changing the channel back over to the NWA for Starrcade 88 and the rematch between Ric Flair and Lex Luger. How has Jim Crockett's promotion been affected by the number of talent jumping ship to Vince McMahon? Especially now that Ted Turner's decided to come calling with his own checkbook. And will the total package be able to defeat the Nature Boy this time, seeing as the Horsemen are seemingly no more? Only time will tell, unless of course you've already watched that show. But until next time, we will see you then. This is the Big Daddy D, signing out.